and clients of Walker Gates Vella. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, immigration attorney based in Austin, Texas. I am here today to talk about U visas and specifically when people who have a U visa can file a petition for their spouse to be included in the U visa or to become a resident with them as a result of having a U visa. This is really important because there are some important deadlines and windows of time to be aware of if you have someone special in your life that you may want to include in your U visa petition. Those benefits that accrue to the U visa can also accrue to your spouse. So if you have someone in your life that you are thinking about potentially including, I just want you to be aware of the limits of being able to do that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And before I get into that, I want to remind everyone to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go down and hit that subscribe button. We are going to be updating you guys at least once a week with videos about important topics in immigration law. We want every deserving immigrant in the United States to get legal status. And we want to make sure everybody, whether you're working with us, another attorney, or without an attorney at all, we want to make sure everyone has high quality information about how to go through this process. So for that reason, we are publishing videos at least once a week. So please make sure you subscribe and share our channel. Okay, so let's talk about U visas. Now, this also applies to T visas. Okay, so U visas are for victims of crime who cooperate with law enforcement in the investigation or prosecution of violent crime. And T visas are for survivors of human trafficking. I'm not going to be talking a lot today about what the different elements of each of these visas are. We have other videos on that topic that you can check out on our channel. Today, specifically, we're talking about benefits of U visas and T visas for spouses and qualifying relatives. The U visa and the T visa include a lot of benefits. They take way too long to be approved. Many U visa applicants are having to wait more than 10 years now for their visas. So that is really unfortunate. However, if you have the ability to wait out that process, the benefits that can accrue to you are really great. And specifically, they mostly include waivers that are not available to other people going through the immigration process. They can include waivers for something called the permanent bar. We also have a video on the permanent bar, so please check that out if you don't know what that is. And waivers for false claims to U.S. citizenship, which are generally speaking the same as a permanent bar. If you have ever tried to enter the United States using someone else's birth certificate or passport of a U.S. citizen, that can result in a finding of a false claim to U.S. citizenship, which bars you from the immigration system through family and employment. So the U visa allows for waivers of these kinds of violations that both for the petitioner for the U visa as well as for their qualifying relatives. In addition, if you get the U visa and you qualify after a few years, most U visa holders are able to apply for their resident status, and you're able to get that in the United States. You can file the I-45 adjustment of status in the United States rather than having to leave the United States and go through the consular process. We also have videos on those topics. So again, this is a relatively advanced video and I'm moving quickly. So if you have questions, feel free to leave them below and I will try to respond. And also check out our other videos on these topics. So previously, USCIS had a policy saying that if you filed for a U visa and you were not married at the time that you filed for the U visa, you could not include your spouse in the U visa. Recently, however, in 2020, a court in California overruled that policy, and they found that the law does allow for U visa petitioners to get married while their cases are pending. So during those 10 or 15 years that your case is pending with USCIS and you're waiting on your U visa, you might get married. Reasonable people do that. You might develop a common law marriage. You might move in with someone and start a family or just live with them kind of as your domestic partner, as your spouse, as a common law spouse. Common law marriages have the same effect legally as a regular marriage that happens at a church or at a courthouse. So whether you get married formally or you develop a common law marriage, after you file your U visa before it's approved, you can file for that spouse to be included as long as the original petitioner's U visa is not yet approved. As long as it remains pending with USCIS and you can prove a legally valid marriage, you are able to include your spouse by filing Form I-918A for U visas or I-914A or T visas for that spouse. So that is a really great benefit to understand. That law changed recently. So if you are waiting on a U visa and you do have a spouse or a common law partner that you want to include, as long as that original U visa hasn't been approved yet, you can file the Form I-918A or I-914A to include that spouse in your U visa. Now, if your U visa has already been approved, if you've already been granted the U visa, then you cannot include that spouse in the U visa anymore. However, when it comes time for you to file for your resident status, if you meet the requirements to apply for adjustment of status as a U visa holder, you have the opportunity to file Form I-929 for your spouse as long as your resident status hasn't been granted yet. So those cases right now are taking approximately 2 years. So during that 2-year window, if you get married or you have gotten married before you file, you can either file that petition for your spouse concurrently at the same time as your I-485 adjustment of status, or you can file it as long as your I-485 has not been granted yet. So whether it is immediately at the same time or a little bit later, it can be filed. The I-929 is a petition for a qualifying relative of a U visa holder or a T visa holder. It's the same. I-929 goes for U visas or T visas. And again, if the I-929 is approved, then that qualifying relative, that spouse, will be able to file I-485 after the approval. So they'll be able to file for their resident status also in the United States. They will not have to leave the United States to get their green card or their immigrant visa at their home consulate. Now, if you wait until you become a full-fledged permanent resident, once you're a permanent resident, you're no longer a U visa holder and you no longer qualify to file for these benefits for your spouse. Now, you may still be able to file for that spouse as the spouse of a permanent resident. So it's not to say that no benefits can accrue to them. However, being able to take advantage of the waivers for permanent bar, the waivers for false claim to US citizenship, and the opportunity to get adjusted in the United States as opposed to leaving and participating in a consular process and doing a waiver through that process. Most of the time, those benefits are not available for spouses of permanent residents who are not still actively holding a U visa. So that is the reason I want to make sure everyone is aware of this. I had this come up recently with a client who thought it would be best, based on some bad advice they got from a different attorney, to wait until their residency was approved to file for their spouse. And unfortunately, that spouse has a permanent bar. And so because the petitioner now is a lawful permanent resident and no longer a U visa holder, they are not able to petition for their spouse successfully, whereas they would have been had they filed it earlier. And so I wanted to make sure that this information is out there. Please contact us if we can be of assistance in helping clarify any of this information or help get paperwork filed for a qualifying relative. Or if you know anyone who might be in the process of getting a U visa and also getting married or developing a long-term relationship, please share this information with them so that opportunities are not lost. And with that, I am going to sign off for this week. Please join us again next week. We'll have another update for you. And in the meantime, please stay safe and well together with your families, secure and in the United States. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.